Hello everyone. This is the second of 3 new series I'm starting on the channel today. Now that I've figured out how to produce these more efficiently, I feel comfortable producing these much more often than the voiced videos, which I will try to do at least 2 a week. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed. Now, without further ado, let's get into the video. Chapter 1, The Aftermath. I love you Weiss, please never forget that, Ruby said softly, pulling her teammate and partner into a soft kiss, holding her close for just a moment before letting go and nodding. Weiss wipes away her tears, creating glyphs up the side of Beacon Tower for Ruby to zip up. For Ruby to hold the line until the professors arrived to help her. But they never did arrive. Not in time to save her Rose. Weiss gasps, sitting up in the bed that Taeyang had allowed her to use while she stayed in Vale with Blake and Yang. She stumbles up, making her way to the room where Yang and Blake were staying. The door creaks softly as she opened it up, her breath still unsteady as she observes her remaining teammates. Yang lays curled up to Blake, her arm still bandaged from her encounter with Adam, while Blake holds the other close. Weiss lets out a soft sigh of relief as she quietly walks over, sitting beside their bed, resting her head on it. Maybe being with them would make that recurring nightmare stay away just this one night. She closes her eyes, letting herself fall back into sleep once more. Pyrrha sighs softly as she knocks on the door in front of her, stepping back as Ruby's father opens the door. She gives him a tired smile and waves, "Hello again, sir. I told you, kid, you can call me Taeyang. You earned that much. Are you here to see the girls again?" Tai says, stepping aside to let the redhead inside. "Yes, I have something I need to ask them. But, I also wanted to let you know first," she talks as she walks inside, turning to him as she got to the stairs. "Miss Goodwitch told me that their team was officially listed under Mistral. If we want answers to what happened, I think you convince them, and you have my whole blessing." Tai nods. I would join you, if I didn't have work here to do. Please. If you can avenge her." Taeyang looks away, blinking away some tears. "I understand, sir. I'll do my best," Pyrrha nods, turning to walk up the stairs, hesitating one more time. "I make sure she can rest easy." She continued up the stairs, wiping away her forming tears as she approaches Yang's room. She hesitated slightly as she heard the all-too-familiar sound of crying from the remnants of Team Ruby. She takes a breath, opting to instead just open the door, poking her head in. Just as Pyrrha was expecting, on the bed sat WBY, sobbing as Yang tried desperately to bite back her own tears while Blake held the two close. I am sorry, I'm so sorry." Weiss chokes out between her sobs, clinging to Yang. I never should have let her go. And no, stop, Weiss. You couldn't have stopped her, you know how she was." Yang sniffles, pulling the smaller girl as close as she could with her remaining arm before looking up and seeing Pyrrha. Her eyes glimmer with more tears. Hey Pyrrha. How are you holding up?" "I'm doing the best I can. There's still no news on where Ren and Nora ran off to, and John's family was finally able to get him back to Mistral. They hope he may be able to get a leg prosthetic there. Speaking of, how's your new arm?" I haven't used it much yet, doesn't feel right, you know. Given everything that's happened," Yang sighs softly, glancing at Blake and the bandages still around her waist. "Why did you come over today? Any news?" "Sort of," Pyrrha nods, walking over and sitting on the edge of the bed. "Their team was from Mistral. If we go there, then maybe we can find out more. At the least we may at least be able to ask around the city about them." "Anima is massive," Blake quietly chimed in, her voice shaky. "It would take forever to travel across the continent on your own." "Well, that's why I'm here." Pyrrha looks at them, determination steeled on her face. "Please, come with me. Help me avenge everything those monsters took from us." Chapter 2, Grim Encounters. "You know Weiss, I think that red suits you." Yang smiles softly as she clips her sister's now modified cape on her teammate, "although I'm not sure how much of that red isn't just my blood. It took 2 months for a reason." She laughs. Weiss rolls her eyes as she looks away, but a soft smile lingers on her lips as she feels the clasp, Ruby's crosspin. The cape was now much shorter, only going slightly past Weiss' shoulders so she could still move fluidly with Murden Aster, But despite this, the warmth still followed. It still felt like RWBY, even though she. If I'm reading the map correctly, we should be able to rest in a village here soon. Pyrrha smiles, holding the map out for the other girls to see. We just have to walk about 5 more miles. 5 miles should be easy enough, Blake nods. Once we rest there overnight we should be able to make it to the next village over well before sundown too. Well, what are we waiting for then? Yang grins, pumping her fist in the air. I wanna get some shut-eye in a bed tonight. Blake laughs softly as Weiss rolls her eyes and Pyrrha chuckles, closing the map and starting to walk again. She had to admit, it's nice seeing some sparks of her old friends coming back now. Suddenly, it didn't feel so lonely anymore, even if it did mean she had to separate Weiss and Yang from time to time. Although, the lack of Grimm did concern her a bit. They all had to be magnets for the Grimm, but they rarely even saw a single Beowulf unless they were doing some work in a village. But she didn't have long to linger on these thoughts as she recognized the smell of smoke ahead. Pyrrha looked up from the path, gasping as she saw a large plume of smoke rising ahead of them. She takes off, her team following behind her. The village was a wreck, Grimm tearing through buildings. Pyrrha frowns, pulling out Milo and running forward, Weiss following close behind her and using several glyphs to hold Grimm in place. Blake and Yang nod at each other, getting to work as well, the two working together nearly as seamlessly as they had at the Vital Festival. While Pyrrha and Weiss would work together to separate and distract their targets, using their dueling skills to eliminate their opponents, Blake would rally the Grimm together for Yang before tossing Gamble Shroud to her partner, pulling her so that her momentum would carry into her hit, destroying any Grimm around her. However, the more Grimm the team destroyed, the more it seemed would show up to take their place. The girls were getting quickly overwhelmed, Weiss' stamina starting to drain from using so many glyphs in rapid succession. She slices her rapier through another Beowulf before stopping, needing a moment to catch her breath. She couldn't keep up much longer, she was running out of aura, out of dust, and out of breath. She leans softly against her rapier. Just a moment wouldn't be so bad, would it? Pyrrha looks over at Weiss, her eyes widening as she sees a Borbadisk charging at her. Weiss. She turns to run over, her body entering autopilot as the creature gets closer. No, she couldn't let her get hurt. Not her too, not after RWBY. A cloud of dust erupts around Weiss, the death cry of the Borbadisk being heard as it occurred. Pyrrha shields her eyes for a moment before moving her arm to see what happened. Tears start to fall as she sees a familiar figure stand up, wielding a large hammer. Nora. Her shock didn't last long as she hears someone drop down behind her, turning just in time to see a hooded figure punch a Beowulf that had been sneaking up on her. The Beowulf howls right before it seemingly explodes. Nora runs over, hugging the other person, the hood falling down to reveal their raven hair and telltale pink streak. More tears fell as Pyrrha grabbed their shoulders, pulling the two into a tight hug. Ren. Nora. You're okay. Pyrrha. Nora gasps, hugging her friend back. You're here. Wait, why are you here? I thought you stayed in Vale with Dash. EY Valkyrie. Yang yells out, having just finished off the seemingly last wave of Grimm just before running over. Oh, my brother's Yang. Nora grins, squirming away from Pyrrha to meet Yang. Oh, new arm, shiny arm. An outfit. You look good, Xiao Long. Hell yeah, I do. I'm not gonna just let some jerk with a hero complex keep me down, not when I got things I gotta do. Yang laughs, pulling Nora into a headlock. While they were roughhousing and Blake was checking on Weiss, Pyrrha looked down at Ren, tears still streaming down her face, words escaping her entirely. We didn't want to leave you, Pyrrha, Ren says softly, caressing her cheek to wipe her tears. We just couldn't handle it, not again. And with John. Is he? And no, his family brought him back here to Mistral so he could hopefully get a prosthetic. Gods, Ren, I missed you too so much. I thought I lost all of you. You let your hair grow out. She sniffled, running a hand through his hair as he held her a little closer, activating his semblance on her. She let out a soft sigh, letting his semblance relax her, let her separate her thoughts. I need to get Weiss somewhere to rest, her aura is far too low for us to continue any further safely. Within an hour, they had a temporary camp set up, the group catching up with one another while Weiss slept. Ren and Blake had taken to talking while they scrounge up some ingredients to cook with. Pyrrha watched as Nora and Yang arm wrestled for the 5th time since they had reunited. Everything felt good, as odd as it sounds. Pyrrha sighs softly as she stands up to take a walk. That was, until she heard a crow's caw and crash. She frowns and sprints to where the sounds came from, moving some bushes out of the way, gasping at what, or rather who, she saw. Crow. Chapter 3, Her Servant's Appearance. What do you mean that Miss Goodwitch sent you out here? Pyrrha frowns, still wrapping Crow's wounds, and why wouldn't you join us, for the brother's sake? We could have helped you. Sheesh, kid, a little softer would be nice. Crow frowns, and what I mean is that Glinda told me what she had told you, and that you would probably be trying to head to Haven. Then I went to Ty's place to find that you four had already set off. He glances over at Yang, who was now letting Weiss' head rest on her lap, so I followed from a distance so that my semblance wouldn't affect you. Clearly that didn't work, given how many Grimm were showing up. And what is your semblance? Ren frowns, crossing his arms. It's called bad luck, Crow sighs, looking down, not the greatest thing to have when wanting to protect a group, so I stayed back. Well, regardless of your semblance, you're staying with us from here on out, am I understood? Pyrrha says as she finishes bandaging his wounds. I'm sure it would help Yang to have you here, Weiss too. They know how close you were to her. She sighs softly, putting the bandages away. Crow looks over at the two, staying still for a moment before nodding. Pyrrha gives a small smile and a nod back. All right. You know Mistral better than us. What would be the fastest way to the city? The next village over should be close enough for me to be able to send a message to Lionheart. He knows that if he doesn't respond, Glinda will have his head. Then we'll head out tomorrow. Weiss needs her time to rest, and you do as well. The growing group had only been walking for about 2 hours when they finally made it to the village that Crow had talked about, except it seems empty now, completely abandoned. Pyrrha frowns, looking at Crow, her expression saying everything. This isn't right. Crow shrugs softly and walks closer to the center of the village, pulling out his scroll to start messaging Leonardo. The signal was weak, but at least they had a signal. Best luck he has had recently. Ren frowns, looking around before grabbing Pyrrha's arm, pulling her closer to him to whisper into her ear. Someone else is here, I don't know where though. He looks up at her, his other hand already on one of his pistols. Pyrrha nods, looking back at her team, her look alerting them to get their weapons ready as well. Well, hopefully that message makes its way to Leonardo soon. We should wait here for a bit to see. Crow is cut off as a shadowy figure appears and grabs Weiss, causing her to drop Murdenaster as she struggles against their grip. Crow's eyes widen as he pulls out Harbinger. EY. Just what do you think you're getting at, bud? Weiss struggles against the figure more as they laugh, their hood falling. Quite the party we have gathered here. Let her go, you damn freak. Yang growls, Ember Celia clicking as a round falls into the chamber. Freak. Oh how you wound me, especially while you're standing next to one of the belladonnas. He grins, a tail unfurling from around his waist, his stinger finding itself positioned right at Weiss' face. Weiss' eyes widen and she stops struggling, seemingly holding her breath. Who are you? What do you want with Weiss? Pyrrha shouts, her grip on Milo tightening as she assesses the situation. The moment any of them move, he could hurt Weiss, and Weiss' constitution has been particularly poor since the fall. There was no guarantee on how long she would be able to stand poison if he had any. They had to find a way to make him let go of her. My name, dear Nikos, is Tyrion. Tyrion Kalos, a devoted servant to our glorious goddess. He grins, wrapping his tail tightly around Weiss, causing her to yelp softly, as he raises his hands towards the sky. And for your other question, our goddess simply thinks this girl may prove to be of some use to make her new pet behave properly. Like hell we'll let you take her. Nora growls, being held back only by Ren's arm in front of her. Goddess? Are you referring to Cinderfall? Pyrrha frowns, looking into his eyes. Oh, that girl can only wish to be as great as our goddess is. Tyrion laughs, his hold on Weiss weakening, his stinger pointing away from Weiss now. Pyrrha smirks softly, bingo, and fires Milo at Tyrion's chest, causing him to let go of Weiss, Blake rushing over to grab her. Tyrion snarls and lunges for the duo, only for Blake to use her semblance in conjunction with some ice dust to freeze his hand into place, giving her time to get Weiss back to Yang, and her sword. If you want to try to take me, You'll need to do a lot more than that. Weiss frowns, lifting Myrtanaster as a glyph appears behind her, her Armagigas appearing. Tyrion pulls out Queen's Servant, using the gun to shatter the ice and turn back towards the group, his tail flicking in excitement before he lunges after Weiss again, only to get punched in the gut by Yang, flinging him back into a wall. Yang stands back up, her eyes a bright red as she cracks her knuckles. You heard her, it's gonna take more than that to even get near her again. Yang smirks. Tyrion growls softly, glancing along the group before his eyes settle on Crow. He runs at Yang, firing his weapons at her, using her blocking as a launching pad to get closer to Crow. Tyrion kicks Crow back with the momentum, following after him. Pyrrha turns to follow before Crow yells out. Stay back, kids. I can handle this. Crow pushes back against Tyrion, using Harbinger to force some distance between the two. Pyrrha glances at the others, frowning softly. Ren was stilling to calm Nora down so she wouldn't rush in and get herself hurt. Blake was looking over Weiss, who had since dropped her summon, while oh no. Get away from my uncle, you creep. Yang shouts out as she runs over, punching Tyrion in the face, narrowly avoiding getting tripped by his tail before going after him again. Crow blinks a few times before following after his niece, the duo working around the other to tag team Tyrion. After Yang punches him back, Crow comes in with a shot from Harbinger, forcing Tyrion back into Yang's assault. Tyrion growls and uses his tail to knock Crow into a nearby building, the wall crumbling around him, before jumping onto Yang, pinning her against the ground. He leans closer to her face, grinning as his semblance activates, slowly slicing down Yang's cheek, down her jaw and neck. Yang screams out in pain, struggling to get away from him as the others stand in mute horror. Tyrion looks at the group of children as he stands, using his stinger to slice across Yang's waist, and bows. Yang. Weiss screams out, all control and poise she had leaving her as she runs forwards, creating several speed glyphs, and moves behind Tyrion. Before the man can react, she summons the arm of her Armagigas, her eyes cold as the massive sword slices right through Tyrion's tail, separating his stinger from the rest of his tail. Ack. You bitch. Tyrion screams out, pulling his tail close to himself, beginning to mumble to himself, running off once he hears the rubble moving. Crow groans as he pulls himself from the remains of the wall, half limping back towards the group until he sees Yang on the ground. His eyes widen and he rushes over, dropping to his knees beside his niece. Shit, hey stay awake now, firecracker, he says, pressing his hands over the wound on her waist as he looks up at the others. Pyrrha. I need the first aid pack, now. Pyrrha nods, rushing over and opening her bag, handing some disinfectant and bandages to Crow before starting to work on Yang's facial wound. Ren, Nora. You two need to be on the lookout for Grim, am I understood? Crow shouts to the other two as Blake and Weiss kneel beside Yang as well. Ren nods and grabs Nora's hand, leading her to the village wall so they can have the high ground. Are you, Ruby? Yang coughs softly, reaching out to Weiss. Her vision was getting blurry, and kind of dark. She hated seeing it like that again. It was too familiar to that night. The night she lost, oh, and no Weiss, she smiles softly, finally finding her face to hold. Weiss was here, Weiss was the one Ruby loved, meaning Weiss was her sister too now. She still had her sister here. SH Yang, save your strength, please, Weiss says softly, putting her hand over top of Yang's. We're here, you're gonna be okay, okay. You're not allowed to leave us too, you dolt, she sniffles softly, holding Yang's hand a little closer to her face. She couldn't lose Yang too. She couldn't lose Ruby's sister like that. Not after everything. Hey. I think I see an airship. Nora yells out before starting to wave her hands in the air to grab the attention of the pilot. Pyrrha quickly looks up before glancing at Blake, who nods at her. She hands off the first aid to Blake and quickly steps back, pulling out an emergency flare from her bag and setting it off. You'll be okay now, Yang, I'll make sure of it. Chapter 4, That Night. Dearest John. I hope this letter finds you in better health than when we were last together. In fact, I hope this letter, and all my past ones, have found you at all. I know that postage has been sparse as of late. Well, we finally made it to Haven, and Yang did eventually come up with a name for us. She decided to call us PSYB, but the B is silent. Some days I wish I could see into her mind for just a moment, it would probably be quite amusing. But besides that, I have some good news, and some bad news. I will start with the good, since I think that it is even better than the bad news could be bad. We found them. Ren and Nora. According to them, once you, yeah. Ren couldn't handle it anymore, said that it reminded him what happened to his village. So, in a panic, he left, and Nora being Nora followed after him. Thankfully they appeared when they did. Y's stamina and constitution still haven't fully recovered yet, and she had gotten exhausted during a grim attack. If Nora hadn't appeared, I don't even want to think of what that Borbadisk would have done to her. Then Ren killed a Beowulf that had snuck up behind me while I was trying to get to Weiss. His offensive aura projection has gotten even stronger than from when we last saw him. He asked me to let you know that he misses you, and that he hopes you'll be able to make a full recovery. Another piece of good news, Yang's Uncle Crow had actually been following us to make sure we were safe. It had worked out pretty good for a while until he injured himself taking on a bunch of Grim himself instead of asking for help. But I can't be too upset with him, he was able to talk to Lionheart and convince him to let us stay in one of the dorm suites. It's amazing the amount of space that Haven students get, it's basically a small home. Which partially leads to the bad news. On the final stretch of our journey, a man named Tyrion Kalos tried to abduct Weiss. We have an idea who he was working for now, but that must wait until we can see each other in person again. I apologize. However, while Weiss is okay, Yang was injured during the attack, a large cut down her face, and he had poisoned her with his stinger as well. She's had the antivenom now, but, well, she needs time to recover. Blake and Weiss haven't left her side since it's happened, which is entirely fair, but doesn't make me any less worried about them. Unfortunately, this also means I'm currently holding off on my investigation into the group of people who attacked Beacon that night. Crow said he would take me to see Lionheart with him soon. I just hope he has some information for me. I won't be able to rest until I know that she can rest easy as well. Truly yours, Pyrrha Nikos. Pyrrha sighs softly as she sets the pen down, fighting back the tears now threatening to fall onto the letter. She had to do this, she had to see this through until the end. After everything, after Penny, after Ruby. She couldn't leave this fight now. She leans her head back, covering her eyes with her arms, letting her tears fall as she remembers that night. She did what? Pyrrha's eyes widen as she softly grabs a crying Weiss' shoulders. She went up the tower to hold that woman off until the professors could arrive. John, get Weiss back to her team, I'll go help Ruby. Pyrrha pushes Weiss into John's arms as she runs into the tower, putting Milo into its Cephas configuration as she approaches the elevator. This will have to work, I have to get to her. Pyrrha takes a deep breath, concentrating her semblance to the elevator around her before sending herself up. She ducks out of the elevator before it goes crashing back to the ground floor. She looks up at the scene in front of her, Ruby zipping around Cinder, the woman that just killed the previous Fall Maiden. Ruby. Pyrrha. Ruby quickly turns to face her friend. To say she looked bad would be an understatement. Blood was dripping from her forehead and nose, alongside some bruising already starting around her left eye. She quickly turns back to her opponent, who simply has a cruel grin on her face. Oh, now the little poser wishes to join us? I'm sorry dear, you'll need to excuse me as I finish this fight up. Cinder is cut off as Ruby takes her chance to use Crescent Rose, the tip of the scythe slicing the left side of her face, including her eye, causing Cinder to scream out in pain. She quickly recovers, looking up in rage at Ruby, orange flames surrounding her eyes. You insufferable brat. Cinder quickly turns her swords into a bow, a glowing orange arrow appearing on the rest as she aims at Pyrrha, mumbling something about taking her time with Ruby as she fires. Time seems to slow as Pyrrha watches the scene around her. Ruby runs in front of Pyrrha, a bright light filling the room for a moment before it suddenly disappears as Ruby yelps in pain, the glowing arrow sinking into her left shoulder, causing the girl to drop to her knees, Pyrrha following right beside her. She can do nothing but watch in horror as the arrow begins to disintegrate like embers, the effect spreading down Ruby's arm and up her neck towards her face. Pyrrha's hands shake as she tries to find out something, anything, to help Ruby before the effect of the arrow can consume her. No. This isn't fair. Ruby stay with me, you can't die. Pyrrha sobs out, essentially trying to pat out the ember effect like she would a fire. Not yet. Why, you're too young. This is what happens when you let a child learn to become a weapon of war, Cinder growls. Having moved behind Pyrrha, you get to watch them burn out and become nothing but ash. Then darkness filled Pyrrha's vision. Pyrrha yelps as she sits up in bed, panting softly as she looks down at her shaking hands. When did I get into bed? She looks to either side of her, seeing Ren and Nora curled up to either side of her. She sighs softly, laying back down and holding the two close, trying to hide her shaking. She had to find Cinder, she had to avenge what happened to RWBY, to that sweet little 16-year-old girl who only wanted to be a hero. And a hero you are, Ruby Rose. The bravest hero I ever met. Weiss knocks softly on the door, waiting a moment before opening it. I heard you yell. She walks in, silently closing the door, and sits on the bed. It was about RWBY again, wasn't it? Pyrrha nods softly, looking down as her tears start to fall again. I'm so sorry Weiss. I didn't protect her, I didn't save her, Don't, Weiss cuts her off, frowning as she gently forces Pyrrha to look at her. RWBY knew what she was doing, I think. I think she knew she wasn't coming off of that tower. She may not have been top of our class, but she was smart. She knew she couldn't beat Cinder. But she gave everything, just to protect us. To protect you. She loved us all until the end, so please stop blaming yourself. Pyrrha is quiet for a moment, shocked that Weiss was able to talk about RWBY without crying again. She tries to fight back against the tears again, failing miserably as she starts to sob, Weiss pulling her into a hug and whispering soft comforts to her. At the end of the day, they all really miss their little Rose. Chapter 5, Another Reunion. Crow sighs softly as he takes another swig of his drink, looking through the glass at the bottom, distorting the world through it. Maybe booze wouldn't take the pain away, but it would at least dim it for a little longer. Damn it, I'm out again. He sets the glass down, glancing at the bartender to let the man know he was ready for another refill. We cannot go in there. What if someone recognizes me? Well, if you weren't so loud and kept your hood on, no one would. Besides, he told me I still don't know if I quite believe you on that. How do I know you're not just crazy? Why would you follow a crazy person this long? Listen, I'm being told I need to go inside, so, are you coming with me or are you staying out here in the rain? Crow tilts his head and quickly chugs his new drinks before walking over to the entrance of the bar, opening the door. You two could also try arguing a little quieter. He raises an eyebrow, looking between the two, very clearly underage, boys in front of him. Why does that tall one look so familiar? Sorry, are you Crow Branwen? The smaller boy asks sheepishly, looking up at Crow, his green and hazel eyes meeting Crow's red ones. That, kid, depends who's asking me. Well. Please be quiet, I'm being asked to, ask for my cane back. The boy sighs, pointing at the long memory. Crow blinks a few times before taking the old thing off of his belt, holding it out a bit, looking for the kid's reaction. A flash of recognition passes over the boy's face as he reaches out for the cane, causing Crow to smile. Nice to see you again, Oz. Weiss cannot decide what is worse, Blake and Yang being both extremely affectionate and oblivious, or Nora and Ren being extremely affectionate and not at all subtle. Or which made her miss her partner more. It was all so incredibly frustrating. Especially for an Adolescent who was never taught how to handle these emotions. She sighs and walks to the door, deciding to just go for a walk when a knocking stops her. She glances around the room. Blake and Yang were cuddling, Nora and Ren were somehow being worse than them, and Pyrrha was focused on cooking, leaving Weiss to handle whoever this visitor is herself. I'm sorry, but I'm almost certain you have the wrong. Whitley Nicholas Schnee, what are you doing in Mistral? Weiss just stands at the open door, completely ignoring the other two in the doorway. What in the God's name was her little brother doing in Mistral, and alone at that? She grabs his shoulders before he can speak, pulling him inside. Does father know? Mother? Winter? Anyone? Lovely to see you too, sister. I'll be happy to answer your questions, but I'd rather wait until we get Yang's drunk uncle inside and preferably not leaning on my companion. Whitley sighs, softly pushing Weiss' hands off of himself. Wah Crow. Yang looks up from Blake, carefully moving her off of her lap and heading to the door. Oh good gods, you're trashed, she sighs, walking out into the rain and wrapping one arm around Crow and putting his arm over her shoulder, half dragging the chuckling mess inside, the other boy following close behind while clutching the cane. Hee. I did it. Crow laughs, letting go of Wise to raise his arms, nearly falling in the process. Found Oz. No one can be mad at me like, ever again. He chuckles, leaning back on Yang. How drunk did you get, Crow? Ozpin is dead, we all know this. Hell, we all saw Good Witch's break down. Yang sighs, forcing Crow to sit on the couch. Having heard the commotion, Pyrrha walks over, taking a look at the situation. Well, that's not entirely true, Yang. You were just not conscious enough for us to fill you in on this part yet. Pyrrha sighs softly, walking over and closing the door. To put it simply, Ozpin can reincarnate, in a sense. She looks over at the boy, offering a smile. Hello again, or maybe it would be more appropriate to say nice to meet you. Alright, yeah, nice to meet you all. I'm Oscar. Oscar Pine Dash. Show them the thingy, kidok muun. Crow chuckles, holding onto the armrest of the couch. Oscar sighs softly and nods, taking a deep breath. Ren quickly looks over as he feels the energy coming from the kid suddenly change. Hello again, students, Ozpin says, a small smile appearing. It makes me happy to see you all found yourselves together again. Well, we aren't all together, sir, Blake sighs softly. John. We still haven't heard from him. I'm certain he won't stay away much longer if he can help it. Dash. What the fuck? Yang exclaims, her jaw practically hitting the floor. No, you guys can't just come in here and what the hell, why is no one else freaked out? We did say that we already knew, why sighs, besides, I have something else I'm trying to figure out right now. And, all of this can wait until after we eat, Pyrrha says, softly clapping her hands together. I made extra just in case anything else strange decided to happen. Yeah, food sounds great right now, let me get Crow to sober up real quick first, Yang sighs, grabbing her uncle again. Okay, let me make sure I got this right. You, Yang frowns, pointing at Ozpin, reincarnate, but in a weird way where you temporarily share a body with someone else. That is accurate, yes. Ozpin nods. And magic is real, along with the maidens, and you, Yang now points at Pyrrha, we're going to be the fall maiden until that damn woman that killed my sister killed the previous maiden. That is correct, yeah, Pyrrha sighs softly, looking down. And the poor kid getting chewed out by Weiss over there is her younger brother, who happened to run away cause Winter let it slip that Weiss might be in Mistral. Ah, yes. Thankfully it doesn't seem that he was entirely unprepared, he did manage to obtain a weapon. The matter of him being able to use it though is entirely separate. Ozpin sighs, looking over at the siblings. He happened to stumble into Oscar at the train station. I attempted to explain things to him, but he didn't quite believe me until we found your uncle. And another thing, Weiss is suddenly cut off by Whitley hugging her, taking her completely off guard, and then again when she feels him starting to cry. Hey. Whitley, are you okay? You're not hurt, correct? I'm not hurt, no. Whitley holds his sister a little closer. I've been worried about you, Weiss. I realize what you meant about father before you left, and I am so very sorry I didn't believe you before, and I heard what happened when you didn't return after father came to get you. Weiss it's okay, Whitley. You're okay, Whitley. Thank you for your concern, really. Weiss softly lifts her younger brother's face from her shoulder, gently kissing his forehead. Just maybe next time you at least leave a note for Winter? I'm sure she's interrogating every pilot in Atlas trying to find you. Well, at least she stopped yelling at the guy. Nora sighs softly before looking back at Ozpin. Say, we already know you, can we possibly get to know Oscar as, himself? Ozpin chuckles softly and nods, letting Oscar regain control of his body. Oscar sighs softly, setting a hand on his chest to take a moment to compose himself before looking over at Weiss and Whitley. Can you tell him to maybe not become travel companions with someone he might think is crazy? Oscar calls over to Weiss, causing the poor woman to look back at Whitley ready to scold him again, and for Whitley to go red. You're insufferable, Pine. I just didn't want you to get hurt and you were insistent on also coming to the city and ugh. Stop trying to give my sister a heart attack, you dolt. Whitley says, crossing his arms and looking away. The room goes dead silent for a moment, causing Whitley to tense up a bit. Did I say something wrong? No, why sighs softly, a small smile having formed, wiping a forming tear away. You two just reminded us all of something. She carefully holds the cross clasp on her cape again, looking over at Yang to hopefully get some backup. Right? You didn't do anything, bud. You just sound a whole lot like your sister. Wait a minute. How old are you two? Yang says, frowning a bit. I'm 14 currently, I turn 15 in February. Whitley nods. I'm 14 too. I'll be turning 15 next September. Oscar smiles, not even noticing when Yang's eyes go red, or when Pyrrha quickly stands from the table. Oscar, I need you to know this isn't pointed at you, kid, Yang says, her voice having a much darker tone. Ajban, what the hell is wrong with you? 14. What, was Ruby not young enough? You can't be serious. Pyrrha says, fighting off tears already. We already know how the story ends. Ajban, you can't let these two be here, not when she covers her mouth, sitting back down as she starts to cry again. Weiss quickly steps over, wrapping her arms around Pyrrha before shooting a glare at Yang. Do not yell at him. Wait until Ajban is in control again if you really have to yell. Weiss frowns. They are both kids, yes, but they're already here. I'm not sending my brother off to my father again, and I doubt Oscar has much of a choice. So, Weiss lets go of Pyrrha, softly patting her shoulder. We do what we can to protect them, including teaching them to protect themselves. Thank you, Miss Shni, Ajban responds, having taken control back while they were focusing on Weiss. I'm certain Miss Rose would be proud of you. That wasn't an invitation for you to talk about her, Ajban, Weiss quickly retorts. I'm simply making sure Cinder won't have the chance to take anyone else from us, especially not someone too young to be here again. Chapter 6, Some Downtime. If everything had gone to plan, Pyrrha would be a very good teacher. She smiles softly as she watches the boys practice sparring with each other, monitoring their aura levels on her scroll. Despite both only recently learning how to use their defensive auras, they were catching on quickly, their hand-to-hand skills improving rapidly. Although Oscar was improving just a bit faster. Alright boys. I think you're good on hand-to-hand for today. Pyrrha walks over to the two, smiling. Whitley, Weiss is going to help you with your marksmanship on your rifle while I work with Oscar and the cane. Whitley nods, walking back over to the door and picking up the weapon he had found before leaving. Its primary form was a sniper rifle, but it had a secondary lance form so he wouldn't be defenseless in a close-range fight either. Oh. And Yang offered to take you out shopping for some new clothes tonight as well, Whitley. I doubt your current clothes are comfortable to fight in. Ah, right, yes, Whitley nods, blushing a small bit. Thank you, Pyrrha. Pyrrha nods, watching as he walks inside before turning back to Oscar, or rather, Ajban. You would make quite the teacher, Miss Nikos. You know I'm not really here to teach Oscar how to use your weapon, right? I assumed as much, Ajban sighs. What do you need, Miss Nikos? I need assurance that if we do find Cinderfall, you're taking Whitley and Oscar out of the fight. She frowns, crossing her arms. I refuse for you to put any more children in front of that woman. Miss Nikos No. You weren't there. You didn't see it? Pyrrha tears up, walking closer to him, unintentionally towering over him. Ruby died for you. She died to magic that you gave out. And I'll be damned if Weiss loses her brother the same way, or if I let Oscar get harmed either. Do I make myself understood, Ajban? Of course, Miss Nikos. Please believe when I say I never wanted it to turn out this way. Unfortunately for you, it did. Raven sighs, glaring at her tribesmen who stood to the sides, terrified of their unexpected guests. Well, either I am losing my memory, or you all have lost your spines. Oh come now, Raven, don't be so harsh on them. They just recognize power when they see it. A woman with black hair steps forward, smiling. Cinderfall, a pleasure to meet you. Given your little, Raven glances behind the woman, looking at her ragtag group, 2 street rats, some sort of intellectual nut, and a small person shrouded in a black cloak with a telltale red eye embroidered onto it. Group, you must be working for Salem. making you the woman who killed Fall and Ojban. Good to know that my reputation precedes me as well. So I assume you know why I'm here then. You know I have spring. If you think I'm going to just hand her over dash. Now, ladies, please, the man walks in front of Cinder, my name is Dr. Arthur Watts. Now, we don't expect you to hand the girl over. We simply have a favor to ask of you too. In return, Her Grace will ignore your past transgressions against her and allow you and your little tribe to continue on the way you have. Seriously. That's all you're willing to give me. You aren't exactly in the spot to negotiate with us, Raven. Watts frowns, but, amuse me, what would you like from us then? I want my brother dead. A little birdie told me that Crow was at Haven, searching for Spring himself. So, Raven stands up a bit straighter, making herself taller than the doctor. QR, The hooded figure croaks out, their head tilting to the side, causing Cinder to glare at one of her associates, a girl with green hair who quickly nods and grabs the figure, pulling it away. We'll do it. Leonardo works for us, so we'll simply trick Crow into a surprise attack. And what of Hazel and the White Fang's attack? What size? We can't do it before or after that, the place would be crawling with huntsmen. Then we do it on the same night. We get the relic, leave, and Adam gets to destroy the academy. A happy ending for all, wouldn't you agree, Raven? Fine. As long as you hold up your end of the deal. So, Whitley. Yang wraps an arm around the boy's shoulders as they walk. What convinced you to run away, huh? Not that I blame ya, I've only ever heard your old man's voice and I already hate him. There's no need to be so close to me, you know, Whitley sighs, shaking Yang's arm off. I simply realized what my sisters have been saying the entire time. And, well, after being recalled from Mistral, Winter stopped by. She tried to talk to Mother about possibly leaving Father again and I listened in. She said something about rumors of Weiss being in Mistral, so I left. I'm allowed to be worried about her after everything that's happened. Yeah, of course little dude. I just Yang sighs a bit. Look. Your sister meant a lot to my little sis, and now my little sister is gone, but Weiss is still here, and I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that Weiss is safe and happy now. That includes making sure you are safe. I appreciate the concern. Ojban had filled me in on some things on our way to the city, like the maidens and such. He didn't talk much about Ruby though, and I wasn't quite on the best terms with Weiss when she would send letters home. If you're comfortable with it, or think it could help you, I'd be happy to learn more about her from her sister. Whitley says softly, keeping his eyes away from Yang's. He isn't the best with emotions, or empathy. After all, he was being raised to be a cutthroat businessman, not a huntsman, but he was here now, and maybe understanding who the woman Weiss loved was, maybe he'd finally be able to connect with her again. Yang blinks a few times before smiling softly, pulling the boy a little closer again. Well, for starters, she'd be 16 right now. 2 years younger than me, 1 older than you and OSC. Yang grins, and if she were here, we'd be having her teach you marksmanship, not your sister. Her weapon was a scythe that could turn into a sniper rifle, she built it herself. I think my dad still has the blueprints at home too, that thing was her pride and joy. Whitley smiles softly, listening closely to the blonde. She was odd to him. If he had to give a word to describe her, he would choose warm. He hopes that, maybe, just maybe, he could enjoy her warmth a bit longer. And that's the end of the episode. Thanks so much for coming and listening along today, and don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. I do Naruto, RWBY, and My Hero fanfics currently, but might branch out further in the future. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please drop a comment down below. I try to respond to every comment. Anyway, I'll see you in the next video. Ciao for now, lovelies.